The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the house as I made my way down the stairs. I stretched lazily when I reached the bottom, still shaking off the remnants of a deep, restful sleep. "Morning, everyone," I called as I stepped into the kitchen. I leaned in to give my wife, Emily, a quick kiss as she stood over the stove. "Daddy!" our son shouted, jumping out of his chair and bolting toward me. I never got tired of that. Tyler, our 4-year-old ball of energy, launched into my arms, and I scooped him up, spinning him around. Emily didn't look thrilled. She was clearly trying to get him to stay seated long enough to finish his Cheerios. Reading the look on her face, I gently set Tyler back in his chair. "How'd you sleep, little dude?" "Good. Reggie came to see me again last night." "Oh yeah? And how's good ol' Reginald doing these days?" I asked, putting on my most serious tone. Tyler rolled his eyes dramatically. "His name is Reggie, Dad. Not Reginald." He stretched out the name like it was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. "My mistake. So, how's Reggie doing?" I asked again, this time getting it right. Emily gave me a warning glance. She didn't love the imaginary friend phase our son had entered. I knew she thought I was encouraging it, but honestly, I didn't see the harm. Tyler was only 4. Kids his age often invented imaginary friends, especially after big changes. We had just moved into a new house in a quiet town called Brookhaven. The transfer at work came with a hefty raise and was too good to pass up. The only downside was that it didn't give Emily or Tyler much time to settle in. "He's okay," Tyler said. "Just okay? That's a bummer. What did Reggie say this time?" "Not much," Tyler replied, slurping a spoonful of milk. Just stuff, huh?" "Yeah. He said he doesn't like you." I clutched my chest dramatically. "Reggie, how could you?" I said, tickling Tyler until he broke into fits of laughter. "Well, maybe I'll finally get to meet him at your birthday party next weekend, and he'll realize I'm not so bad." Tyler giggled and shrugged. "That's silly, Dad. Reggie can't come. He's dead." Emily dropped the spatula she was holding. The sound of it clattering against the stove was louder than it should have been. Our eyes met. I blinked, then turned back to my son. "Wait, what did you say?" "He's been dead for a long time," Tyler said, unfazed, before spooning another mouthful of cereal. "Mom, can I go play outside now? I finished almost the whole bowl." Emily looked distracted but nodded. "Sure, just take your bowl to the sink first." "Yes, ma'am," Tyler chirped, already halfway to the sink with his half-eaten cereal. Seconds later, he was out the back door, disappearing into the yard. I watched him go, then turned to Emily. "What do you think that was about?" "I have no idea, but it's creepy," she said. "Definitely. You think there's anything behind it?" She gave me a look. "Are you seriously asking if our house is haunted and our son's imaginary friend is a ghost?" "Come on, Ryan. What, you don't believe in ghosts?" "Of course not. That's ridiculous. You don't actually buy into that stuff, do you?" I hesitated. "I don't know. There's a lot in the universe we don't understand. Who's to say what happens after death?" She rolled her eyes and turned back to the eggs she was cooking. "Right. Well, you said it yourself. It's just an imaginary friend. Remember?" She glanced over her shoulder. "Yeah," I said, but my voice trailed off. My eyes were on the backyard, watching Tyler dig in the sandbox. Maybe I should sleep in his room tonight. Just check things out. Make sure there's not some creep sneaking around. "Seriously? Don't you think that's overkill? What could it hurt? It's Friday night. My mom would love to keep him for a sleepover. She can spoil him with cartoons and cookies, and you get a night to relax with a bubble bath and a glass of wine." She tried to look annoyed, but I saw the temptation flicker across her face. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "Tell me a night to yourself doesn't sound amazing." She sighed. "Fine, but if your mom's not available, we're not doing it." Just as I expected, my mom jumped at the chance to take Tyler for the night. She picked him up that afternoon, and Emily and I enjoyed pizza, wine, and a peaceful evening. I sent her off to her long bath while I vegged out in front of some UFO show on the History Channel. By 11, I was yawning and ready to hit the sack. After changing into PJs and brushing my teeth, I poked my head into the bedroom. Emily was already curled up with a novel. "Off to commune with the dead," I said in a goofy ghost hunter voice. She didn't even look up. "Have fun," she muttered, blowing me a kiss. I made my way to Tyler's room, flicked on the light, and took in the blue walls and the huge clown mural grinning back at me. I shivered. Whose idea was this carnival theme again? Oh right, Emily's. I would never understand why anyone found clowns charming. I climbed into Tyler's little bed, turned off the elephant-shaped lamp, and let the red night light in the corner fill the room with its faint, eerie glow. It cast long shadows on the clown's face, giving it a menacing twist. I did my best to ignore it, rolled onto my side, and tried to drift off. I woke to the sound of creaking. For a second, I couldn't place where I was. Right. Tyler's room. I rubbed my eyes and scanned the room. The closet door on the far side of the room was slightly open. I was pretty sure it had been closed earlier. Tyler's tiny backpack swung gently from the doorknob. "Hello," I whispered. Nothing. I turned my head and found myself staring directly at that damn clown again. The red night light made the entire room feel surreal, distorted. "You're not Tyler." I whipped my head back toward the closet. The voice was so faint, I wasn't even sure I'd heard it. "Who's there?" I asked quietly. No reply. I rubbed my eyes and shook my head. This was getting ridiculous. I was a grown man, spooking myself in my son's room. I threw off the covers and started to swing my legs out of bed. "You're not Tyler." This time I heard it clearly. My body froze. I turned, slowly, toward the closet. The red glow of the nightlight illuminated just enough to show a pale face peeking from the shadows. Only the top half was visible. Huge black eyes, gray skin, and tangled dark hair. It was staring straight at me from a height far too tall for a child. "What the hell? Who are you?" I stammered. The face didn't move, didn't blink. "Are you Reggie?" At the sound of the name, the face vanished. There was a shuffling sound from the closet. "Where is Tyler?" The voice was harsher now, growling his name like a threat. "He's not here," I said more firmly this time. "What do you want?" The room fell silent. "Then want, Tyler." A jolt of panic ran through me. "You can't have Tyler," I snapped. The temperature dropped instantly. The air felt like static. The hairs on my arms stood straight up. And then I saw it. The face reappeared, this time lower, crawling. Now I could see it more clearly. It was a child's face, but wrong. Hollow. Rotten. Its skin was sallow, its eyes sunken and ringed with darkness. Its lips were drawn into a crooked grin, revealing a mouth full of sharp, broken teeth. And it was crawling, slithering, from the closet, whispering, "Want Tyler." I backed up until my shoulders hit the headboard. The thing kept slinking forward, its torso sliding out from the closet like a snake. Its hands were pressed tightly to its sides, elbows locked, and it moved with an unnatural, fluid grace. That grin never faltered. Then it disappeared beneath the bed. I didn't breathe. My hands clutched the mattress so tightly my knuckles turned white. I could hear it under me. The springs creaked as it grabbed hold of them, making the tiny bed groan under its weight. I could track its movement by the sound, slow and deliberate, like it was crawling up toward me from underneath. Then I saw them, two pale, bony hands creeping over the edge of the mattress. The fingers were too long, the nails jagged and blackened. That was when I froze, truly froze. I had never understood what paralyzed with fear meant until that moment. My brain screamed at me to run, to get up, to do something, but my body wouldn't move. Another hand joined the first. I squeezed my eyes shut. I couldn't look at it again. I couldn't bear to see that face appear, grinning, just inches from mine. And then, "Ryan, come back to bed already. This is ridiculous." The room lit up. Emily stood in the doorway, backlit and rubbing her eyes. "Ryan?" she asked again, noticing my expression. I turned quickly, eyes darting back to the side of the bed. Nothing, just the edge of the mattress. No hands, no creature. I exhaled a breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. I'm fine," I managed to say. Emily stepped further into the room, glancing around like she didn't understand what had just happened. "Come on, come to bed. I hate sleeping alone. It gives me the creeps." She turned and walked off down the hallway. I waited a full minute before daring to move. I swung my legs over the bed, half expecting a clawed hand to latch onto my ankle, but nothing happened. I didn't check under the bed. Couldn't. I just got up, walked out, and quietly shut the door behind me. Back in our bedroom, Emily had already drifted off. I lay down next to her, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, that face came back. Those black eyes, that grin, those teeth. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was creeping through the blinds and birds chirped from the trees outside. But I woke up with a decision already made. There was no way Tyler was sleeping in that room again. Not until I figured this out. I pulled out my dusty old laptop from under the bed and fired it up. The ancient thing wheezed to life as I waited, tense and pacing. Finally, the browser opened. I typed, "How to get rid of ghosts." The blinking cursor mocked me. Delete. DIY exorcism. Worse. Delete. Cleansing spirits from your home. Better. I clicked. Most of what came up was nonsense, but a few pages seemed promising. Within a couple of hours, I had a plan. And I had a name. Reginald Ward. Turns out, our house was the site of a tragedy in 1907. An 8-year-old boy named Reginald Ward had died here, tuberculosis, according to the records I dug up. I felt sick, not just at the idea of a child dying here, but at the thought that something about that death had kept him here, had warped him into what I saw last night. Emily popped her head into the room and startled me. "What are you up to? You've been hiding in here all morning." "Nothing," I said too quickly, casually closing the laptop. She squinted. "Right?" Thinking fast, I said, "You've been super stressed lately. What if my mom keeps Tyler for a few more hours and you treat yourself to a spa day?" Her eyes lit up. "You're serious? You always say spa days are a waste of money." I forced a smile. "I changed my mind. You deserve it." "I'm calling them right now," she said, already halfway down the stairs. It worked. While she got ready, I called my mom and asked her to keep Tyler longer. Then I raced out to gather supplies. 45 minutes later, I returned home with everything I needed. A sage smudge stick, a feather, a small abalone shell, coarse sea salt, and a Bible. Emily had already left. Good. I climbed the stairs, walked into Tyler's room, and shut the door. Even in daylight, it felt dark. Gloomy. The curtains filtered in just enough gray light from the rainy sky to make the room feel like a memory instead of a place. I got to work. I poured a line of salt across the doorway. Supposedly, it kept the spirit from escaping. I set the abalone shell on top of the Bible. That part wasn't in the instructions, but I figured a little divine backup couldn't hurt. I cracked the window. Rain spattered in, but I didn't care. The spirit needed a way out. I lit the sage. A small ember glowed, releasing thick, earthy smoke. I dropped it into the shell and picked up the feather. Here goes nothing. I began pacing the room, slowly waving the feather to waft the smoke. I made 3 full laps before I finally spoke. Reginald Ward, I command you in the name of God to leave this place. You're not welcome here. Nothing. Again, Reginald Ward, I command you in the name of God to leave this place. Still nothing. Reginald Ward, in God's name, leave this house. Then it changed. The silence. The rain? Gone. Like the sound had been swallowed. The air thickened, too thick, like I was underwater. Reginald, in the name of God, I command you, leave. Thump. The closet. I stared. The door inched open wider, darkness thick behind it. Another thump, and then a hiss. Reginald, I command you to leave this place. I shouted. Another hiss, then a dragging noise, nails on wood. Dante, the voice whispered, trembling and low. Reggie, I said, you must leave. The voice said nothing now, but the hands appeared again, those horrible, child-sized hands clawing at the frame. Then, Ryan, don't. I didn't stop. Reginald Ward, in the name of God, leave this house. The top of his face appeared, sunken eyes, gray skin. Something in those black eyes looked afraid, almost pleading. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but only for a second. Softly now, Reggie, you need to go. Smoke started rising from his skin. The hands fell away. Then the thing crawled forward, dragging its limp body from the closet. Its skin smoldered, its eyes fixed on me in sorrow or rage. I couldn't tell. Don't! It rasped one last time. The smoke swallowed him whole. Then it drifted, silent and slow, out the open window. And just like that, it was gone. I stayed frozen in place, staring at the empty space where Reginald had just vanished. My legs gave out, and I dropped to my knees on the floor, breath coming in short, shallow bursts. I hadn't realized how much the encounter had drained me. Physically, mentally, emotionally. My heart thundered in my chest. Sweat clung to my skin. But the room was still now. Silent. Peaceful. It was over. Later that night, Emily and I sat on the couch, each with a glass of wine. She was glowing from her spa day, relaxed and content. I hadn't said much since she got back, and thankfully, she didn't push. I wasn't sure how to explain any of it yet. Honestly, I wasn't sure I ever could. All that mattered was that Tyler was safe now. I took a long sip of wine, letting the warmth spread through my chest as I sank deeper into the couch. Then the doorbell rang. Before either of us could react, we heard the fast thumps of tiny feet charging through the hallway. Mom! Dad! Tyler ran into the room and launched himself at us. His face lit up with excitement. Emily and I laughed as we hugged him, trying to catch bits and pieces of his rapid-fire recap of the weekend with my mom. Something about cookies, dinosaurs, and a puppet show. My mom entered the room at a much more reasonable pace, shaking her head with a smile. Geez, Tyler, let them breathe. Then Tyler looked up at us and beamed. I'm gonna go show Reggie my new puzzle. Grandma got it for me. Before I could stop him, he was already racing up the stairs, giggling the whole way. I stiffened. Emily sat up straighter too. My mom looked at us, then gave a small laugh. He could not stop talking about his friend Reggie all weekend, she said as she sat down in the chair across from us. I forced a smile. Well, I don't think we'll be seeing much of Reggie anymore. Emily gave me a curious sideways glance, but I kept my gaze fixed ahead. My mom went on unfazed. It was the weirdest thing, though. When I asked about Reggie, Tyler told me he was dead. I know, Emily said with a small laugh. Pretty creepy, right? Yeah. My mom nodded. But he also said Reggie was his friend. Said Reggie protected him from the others. My blood turned to ice. I turned to her slowly. What did you say? She blinked at me, confused by my reaction. That's what he told me. He said there were others who lived in the attic, that they were mean, that they tried to come downstairs and hurt him, but Reggie wouldn't let them. He said Reggie kept him safe. She paused, then added, when I asked more, he shut down. Wouldn't say another word. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Emily looked at me, concerned. Ryan. But I wasn't listening. All at once, everything made sense. Reggie hadn't been after Tyler. He was protecting him. All the warnings, the fear he'd instilled in me, it hadn't been meant as a threat. It was a plea, a desperate attempt to protect my son from something far worse. From them, the others. Want Luke. That whisper hadn't been Reggie's desire. It had been a warning. I dropped my wine glass and threw the blanket off my legs. I was halfway to standing when it happened. Tyler's scream ripped through the house. Hi. Sharp. Terrified. Emily jumped to her feet. My mom gasped, and I ran. Up the stairs, taking two at a time. The hallway felt darker than before, the air colder. I reached Tyler's room and threw open the door. The red nightlight was glowing. The clown on the wall grinned back at me like it was enjoying the show. And Tyler was standing in the middle of the room, staring up at the ceiling with wide, glassy eyes. Tyler, I shouted, running toward him. What happened? He didn't respond. Then I looked up, and I saw them. Hands. 4, 6, maybe more, clawing their way out of the ceiling like it was made of fabric. Pale, broken fingers reaching downward. The air was thick with static, the room colder than ice. No! I grabbed Tyler and yanked him away just as the ceiling began to ripple and tear. Behind me, the sound of something, many things, sliding down the walls filled the room. And that's when I realized Reggie wasn't the only spirit in our house. He wasn't the worst one. He'd just been the guard at the gate. And now that he was gone, they were free.